So, Halloween 2018 was probably my most anticipated film of the year. Now, that being because Halloween is a lot more than a movie to me. It was Halloween and Creepshow by George Romero were the two films that really made me a lover of horror. Horror is my favorite genre, and I totally account that to the fact that I just went on a binge of just every John Carpenter and George Romero film I could find after I saw those two. And honestly, to this day, I've seen every John Carpenter film. He is my favorite director, and his favorite film of my favorite film of his would definitely be the 1978 classic original Halloween. I love what it did for the horror genre, whereas Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Halloween started the slasher genre. I love that Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Tobe Hooper, Halloween, John Carpenter, Friday the 13th. I don't know the director of that. I know I just forgot his name. And Nightmare on Elm Street, Wes Craven, with also George Romero's, Living Dead trilogy. Basically, didn't just change the face of horror, it really just changed the world to where at that point, those four really men, George Romero, John Carpenter, Tobe Hooper, and Wes Craven, they changed the world in terms of cinema to where they pushed the boundaries of what was considered mainstream and what was profitable. And they honestly just they made it they revolutionized the world of cinema, and I count a lot of that to John Carpenter's Halloween. And I love it not just as a film and just how brilliantly it is written for how little they had to work with and all that they did, but also for what it did as a whole. And going into Halloween 2018, I was beyond excited for this. I remember following every article I could on Halloween Returns back in 2015, 2016. Very similar idea to where Michael is on his, he's in prison on death row, and Jamie Lee Curtis returns as Laurie Strode to see him get executed. He escapes, whatever. I remember reading the leaked script for Halloween 3D by Rob Zombie, and I remember seeing both of those, Halloween 3D and Halloween Returns canceled. But I was so happy when Blumhouse bought the rights to Halloween, because I understood they were going to do something with that. It wasn't like Dimension Films constantly canceling stuff. Blumhouse was actually going to do something with the rights, because Jason Blum is a very smart man. He's been killing it with horror movies and just movies in general. Their first outside of the horror box movie they did was Whiplash, which got nominated for just about every Oscar, won a lot too, and started Damien Chazelle's career. So Jason Blum, he knows how to make money and he knows how to make good movies. So I was excited to see he would be behind this, and I love to see that they brought on a great director, David Gordon Green. I love to see that they brought on John Carpenter, to where I love and hate the Rob Zombie remake. Overall, I think it's a good movie, but I love and hate aspects of it. And I really love, and I love Rob Zombie, don't get me wrong, but his idea that he doesn't really care about anyone's opinion, including John Carpenter's, I feel really did hurt that movie. And what I loved about 2018 was John Carpenter basically was a co-director for this. I forget if they give him a producer or executive producer credit, but basically he was on everything. He oversaw the script, he oversaw the filming of the movie. He was there for every creative decision, and I feel like they really honor the original by having John Carpenter basically help make this film. And they very much respect his original idea, and I very much see his influence in it, because in original interviews they said, we want to make Michael more human, he's not that force of evil. And I really disagree with that, because in interviews for the original film, John Carpenter said Michael Myers is the evil within all of us, that anyone can have this just unbridled, ambitionless, just pure evil, and he is a force of nature. And I do see that, even though the director said he wanted to make Michael Myers more human and get rid of all that supernatural stuff, this movie definitely has him as a force of nature, unkillable force of nature, and I can obviously see John's influence in that. But also John Carpenter did the score for this movie. I've already paid $10 to have the entire soundtrack. I very, very much would advise you do, because it's insane. I loved all the music. They kind of redo the Halloween theme. It's amazing. There's a lot of new stuff, and it's just truly amazing. Especially the scene where Laurie's granddaughter is chased by Michael. It's called her name. The shape chases whatever her granddaughter's name in, and it's absolutely masterful. Besides that, let's get to the actual review. There was a lot riding on this movie. It was my most anticipated film of the year, and I'm not gonna lie, I had insanely high expectations. I'd had more expectations for this than Infinity War, and that's because horror is my favorite genre. Michael Myers is basically, next to Jason, Freddy, and Leatherface, the biggest horror icon there is, and this movie just had so much hype behind it. I love the trailers. I had just gotten so much on the hype train. I was terrified this movie would disappoint me, but it didn't. Starting off with characters, I loved what they did with Laurie Strode. They take a very tortured approach to horror, and they don't just show her as this cool, lovable hero. And something even H2O, like they showed in H2O that she had problems, but she was still a very likable person. In this movie, they show she is still the hero we know her as, but she's also very damaged, and at times, honestly, it's conflicting because you understand why she does what she does, but at the same time, you don't like what she does because you understand she's going through trauma and PTSD, but she does a lot of just, honestly, messed up stuff, and I loved it because it's insane amounts of character development, and it's so dramatic to where we are seeing parts of Laurie Strode, and Jamie Lee Curtis is being pushed as an actor in ways I would have never expected 40 years after the original Halloween. And not even just first one aside, it's just such a great character arc and a great performance. Like, we get to see a genuinely well acted, tortured character go through some insane amounts of self rediscovery, and just watching her figure out how to move on with her life and conquer this innate internal fear of Michael Myers and the trauma he caused her 40 years ago. Obviously, Michael Myers, you say, oh, it's a guy in a mask, there's not a lot there, but there is so much performance in him. They bring back the original shape, Nick Castle. They have a new guy playing him for the scenes where there's a mask, because Nick Castle is no longer like 6'4", he's like 5'11", but Nick Castle and the guy they have playing the shape of the mask do a fantastic job. This movie gives a lot of personality to Michael. Like, I loved how they made him an actual, like, presence. Like, you very much feel the presence of Michael Myers in this movie. He's not just like a killer, he is a force of nature. Like, he is synonymous with the holiday of Halloween. He is the boogeyman, and I loved how the directors and the writers handled his character and making him scary again. Like, Michael Myers he's brutal, relentless, he is uncaring, he moves without mercy, it's random, it's scary. I love that this movie had me on the edge of my seat at sometimes, and I love that this movie was brutal. Like, Michael Myers is insanely violent in this movie. Like, it's not as, like, I would say at times it's as gory as the Rob Zombie films, but it's not like as dirty, if you know what I mean. Like, it's not like every second there's this insane moment of grotesque violence. It's leveled out to where at times, like when it happens, it's shocking, and I loved it because it just makes Michael this insanely intimidating figure. Michael is still insanely strong. He's still has this this pure sense of evil to him, and I loved it. Great character, and probably some of the best moments for the Michael character in the franchise. I love the supporting cast. Everyone got a great amount of character development, and there were some subplots that I was very much interested in. And seeing as this is the 10th entry in the series, I'm pretty sure, it's very nice to see that we have new characters that we care about, I want to see more of, and that the supporting cast that was introduced all had interesting arcs and personalities, to where at the end of the movie, I really didn't like seeing some of them die, and people do die in this movie. And that was something else that was really cool to see. I love the pacing. It gradually, it starts off, introducing the world and the new world we're in, and then it picks up, and when it starts, the slaughter is insane. I love obviously I already said I love the soundtrack. Every beat by John Carpenter is pure perfection. And I love the story. Like, this movie, listen, when you're a Halloween fan, Halloween fans, they want stuff to keep in linear sequence with the original series. Like, they want certain elements, but they also want new stuff. They don't just want the same movie over and over again. And that's also just what a movie fan wants. Like, if you want to see a good movie, you want to see something that resembles what you like, but at the same time is new. And this movie is that. Like, it has elements from the Halloween series you would want. Like, you want to see Michael do certain things, and you want to see Laurie and Michael fight. You will get that. but you will also get some insane twists and new ideas for the plot. I don't want to spoil anything, so I know I'm being very vague and using a lot of generalifications, but that's just the truth. This movie has the stuff you want to see that you're familiar with, but it also has a lot of new ideas you're going to love and you will want to see more of in future installments. Now, this movie, my only real problem, and this is a very, 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 very like minor gripe, is I don't very much like the ending, because I saw this as like Michael v. Laurie showdown, end of the 40-year fight, but it does end, and you've probably seen this in articles. It ends on a note to where it opens up for a sequel, and I'm okay to if they want to like build up a trilogy to where Laurie kills Michael, but and I won't count against the movie right now, because if they're building towards like a trilogy where they do end up having Michael or Laurie kill one another, I'm happy with that. But right now, I was a little disappointed because all I really wanted was that one of them to kill the other and end it. But I do get the feeling that Jason Blum wants to build a franchise building towards that instead of just being a one-off. So I'll forgive them of that, because I do believe that they are building towards that. So overall, Halloween is a insane, just perfect resurgence of not just the slasher genre, but of Michael Myers. He's intimidating. He is a force of nature again. Jamie Lee Curtis kills it. Probably gives the best performance of her career as Laurie Strode. Again, the supporting cast is amazing. I feel like some careers were made with this movie. John Carpenter kills it with the score. And overall, this is probably my favorite movie of the year. And as a Halloween fan, this movie was just not a movie, but a experience I will remember for the rest of my life. I will give this movie 10 out of 10, and I highly recommend you see it.